Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I know it is Wednesday afternoon. Everyone's happy to sit down a little bit. I have a confession. I have some caffeine in my bottle over here because it's Wednesday afternoon. I'm Matt Green. It's nice to meet you. I'm a VP of Lifecycle at DCS, so I do a lot on the post-project side of things. We're going to talk to you today about a few things on the planning side. You're seeing a lot about all the equipment you can put in. We're going to go ahead and do some intros. So I said I'm Matt Green.
Hi guys, I'm Jeff Waller. I'm with Waller & Associates, so this is kind of a combined presentation from DCS, Design Conveyor Systems. They do integration services, and Waller & Associates, and we do warehousing and distribution consulting. So thanks for showing up this afternoon. I noticed on my way in that there are a lot more people leaving than there were coming in. So appreciate y'all coming out. So this is going to be a little bit different than a normal presentation than you've seen here. This is all about operations, the planning process, the operational planning process for bringing equipment and automation into your buildings, and the post go live support, so planning for that support, right? So we're not going to show you whiz-bang equipment, we're not going to show you robots, and that's not what this is about. This is about how do you get your operation ready from a people standpoint, from a process standpoint, to bring in automation and then support it afterward. So glad you guys came. Al?
Hey guys, my name's Al Ritchie, and I'm a managing director working for Jeff. We do the supply chain and warehousing assessments, warehousing design, and something interesting is I'm a former customer. So a few years ago, I was working for a different company and I had inherited a mess, and I'll leave it at that. But I found Jeff and his team and did fantastic things with that project, really gave the company an opportunity to go in a new direction. And then after I left the company, Jeff called and said, hey, why don't you join me? And I've been with them for 3 years. So typically I'm on your side of the fence more than this side. So we have stories we can tell you, okay? Glad you're here, thank you.
And just for clarification, I did not poach him from the company.
He waited till I left.
He hung up his corporate cleats and I called him afterwards. So just, for the record.
Which button is it?
The green button.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and do this in two sections. Section 1 is before the project. Section 2 is going to be after the project. So Jeff and Al are going to take the lead with Section 1. I'll interject, when I want to, but they're going to be leading off.
All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is planning, right? How do you get ready to bring in automation? We have so many customers that I have seen automation make their DCs, right? Make their operation. It either saved their operation, it allowed them to get the throughput through that they needed, reduce labor, really hit their objectives. And then on the other end of that, we've got many clients that brought in automation and they either didn't realize the gain that they had hoped in the business model that they put together to justify automation, or even worse, it slowed them down to a grind, right? And so there are right ways to bring in automation, right? Obviously, it has to be the right solution to begin with, but there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. It's not like you just install it, turn the switch on, and go. And so that's what Al and I are going to talk about, and then the next phase of it, or part 2 of it, is how do you plan for the support of the automation systems after they're up and running and in play. So that's really what we're going to talk about this afternoon. Hey guys, thanks for coming. All right. Oh, I have the clicker. There we go. All right. So Al, you want to?
Absolutely. As Jeff was mentioning, it's all about the planning. You have to be careful with this, but the reason we're all here at ProMat is this slide right here. This is from MHI, and the intent from supply chain professionals, decision makers, is a heavy investment into automation. So We know it's coming. We've seen all the toys out here, and they're fantastic. And what we want to talk to you about is preparing for the plan, for the project, and then surviving the implementation, because it's you have to be careful with it. There's a challenge out in the market with finding labor, finding consistent labor. Automation will help you move around that. But as you'll see in the next few slides, what we're going to talk about is preparing for the implementation. We have a client we're working with right now, and Jeff will tell you in our role in consulting is we are tour guides to help our customers see the way forward. Be careful with this, please do this. We're working with a client now in our conversations because they're about to commit to automation. So our conversations let's talk about preparation, DIMS, data analysis, making sure that you'll have a successful implementation.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's not a client out there, you may not be experiencing this, but we don't have any clients out there who aren't suffering with labor availability and labor stability when it comes to staffing their centers. So there's a lot of people that are looking to automation to help with that issue, but it's an ongoing issue. And one of the things that will help with the implementation of automation is understanding where you are today. So we're going to go into a little bit about performing a gap analysis ahead of time, and this is all planning for automation to come in, right? So why do a gap analysis, Al?
Yeah, and this is, my background is automotive, so very heavy into lean thinking. But the whole process is about understanding where are you. That's the top left. What's your current state? You can't do automation for the sake of doing automation. You won't have a happy ending, you just won't. So you start off with the top left. What's your current state? How are we performing? How are we doing things? What's our capability? What's our methods and processes? And you're moving towards the bottom right, which is the future state. Okay? That's the vision of what you want, but you can't define that until you work on the top right, which is by customer needs. So you've got internal pressure from finance, from customer service, from sales, to how do you evolve the operation? And then you've got the changing demand of your customers. And who hasn't been wrecked by Amazon? We all love the speed, but now everybody has that expectation, okay? So know your current state, know your customer needs, define your future state, and then have a conversation about your gap analysis. There is a gap between where you are and where you want to be, and you can't leapfrog that. You've got to sit down and do the gap analysis because you have to make decisions on what you're going to do and, more importantly, what you're not going to do. So this is an important slide to get you through the cycle. And again, it's back to, as a tour guide, how could we work together to help you understand this? We don't want to do ready, fire, aim, okay?
I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's understanding where you are now and where you want to be. And so it forces you to have the conversations with your team, with your bosses, right, and with your customers on where you are now and really defining where you want to be. And that's the value of doing this gap analysis, right? It's not just another step, it's not another administrative duty. It's really to get everybody on the same page of where you want to get to. What does this look like when we're done? Where are we now? And what do we need to fill in? What do we need to make sure that we don't miss on the customer side? What do we need to make sure that we don't miss are we deficient in some skills in labor to be able to run this new automated DC, right? Whether it be at the management level or at the operational level. So that's why you do this, right? And it's important because this is the first real part of the communication process to make sure that the entire organization is moving. It's just not, hey, this project team came up with this idea of a goods to person system and we're going to implement it over the next year, right? It has to be everyone involved in it, from from the president to the janitor, right? I mean, my friend likes to say, bring in the janitor in it. They need to know what's going on, right? Everyone needs to be on the same page of where you're trying to get in this process. And so this is step one.
Yeah, one more thing about this slide. The beauty of this process is it'll change your preconceived notions. You've been to the trade show, you found a new toy, that's the one I want. You don't know that until you've been through the process. And we, many times, as I've been on your side of the fence, and now we're on this side of the fence guiding people, what you think you want, by the time you realize, so some people don't really document their current state. We can help with that. But as you really define your future state, your customer needs, your own dreams, it may be solution B instead of solution A. So you have to be careful not to jump in with preconceived notions. Through this process, you'll go, oh, I thought I needed this, but this is what I need to get me to my future state.
Right. And everybody does a business case, right, to bring, especially if it's a capital intensive piece of automation. Everyone has done a business case, right? And you've submitted it and it's been approved. But what this does is it gets finance, it gets sales, it gets your boss all on the same page about how it's really going to work in your operation, right? How many times do you go in a project and not everybody's on the same page about what the end result's going to be? Oh, well, I thought it was going to do this. Well, no, it's not going to do that, right? We can get twice as many out the door now. No, we can get 50% more out the door now, right? I mean, everybody needs to be on the same page before the truck backs up and starts installing this stuff, right? Oh, and by the way, if you guys have any questions, please ask them as we go. I would love for this to be interactive and not just three talking heads up here.
Yeah, we hate presenting. We'd rather just have a conversation, okay?
Yeah, right. All right, so high-level steps to prepare, Al.
Yeah, this is important. It's back to what Jeff was just talking about. You have to really define your requirements. Like we talked about, what are the business needs? What are the customer needs? What are the market needs? What are the projected market? What's the evolution that's coming? We talked about Amazon, the Amazon effect. What disruptive things are coming, and how can you use all the data you can to help define your future state? You need to be flexible. Things will change. You may think you've committed to a path, you may have committed to timing, but your customer may change, your market may change. So you've got to make sure you have flexibility, and if you do select a piece of automation, you've got to make sure that automation solution is also flexible, because your world will change. Whatever you think you need for the next year or two may or may not be what you need in 5 years. You have to have that flexibility. The last thing you want to do is go back and ask for more capital. And regular reviews, as you're going through the process, don't wait till the end of the game to see where are you. Regularly have meetings, regularly have conversations. You heard Jeff mention it's about setting expectations, okay? You're in operations, you've found this piece of equipment, you know what it's going to do, but finance assumes something else, or sales assumes something else. So you have a lot of communication, a lot of expectation setting on capability, capacity, cost. Those are the things you have to do. So you cannot over communicate these things. And to the last section here, you need course corrections. You may be in the middle of a project and all of a sudden sales comes in and says, I have a new requirement. Let me tell you about this customer. So that's back to flexibility, communication. You don't want to get to the end and be unhappy. It's too hard, it's too expensive.
Yeah, so if you go into the project with knowing that this is how you're going to prepare for it, that we're going to do these things all throughout the process, and everybody knows you're going to do these things through the process, it becomes a much easier, and everybody's on the same page, right? I mean, think of larger project teams within your organization, right? They all kind of fall into one of these categories of what they want out of it, right? Finance wants it to be cheap. You want it to be good. Your boss wants it to be fast, right? And they conflict, right? So it's, Al says all the time, pick two, right? You get two, you don't get three, right? So you have to be prepared for that. All right. So before system design, right? System automation, automation is a tool for business. So there's a lot of people going through system automation now. It is nothing but a tool, right? It is a way to help you get things done faster, easier, cheaper, more efficiently, right? But you cannot or should not, a lot of people do, automate bad processes, right? It's not the first time you've heard it. It's not new news, but a lot of people automate bad processes. In preparation for automation, you have to get your processes under control first. Not the automation that you're bringing in isn't going to be the savior of your operational bad processes. They will carry through to the implementation of your new system. How many people have implemented a new WMS or an ERP or something like that, and it's like, oh well, we're just going to do it the way the system tells us to do it. We don't have to worry about our horrible processes now, right? I mean, I think everybody's probably experienced that one time or another. The key to success in these projects is understanding your processes and not automating the bad in your current processes, getting those under control, documenting them. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier about preparing ahead of time for that implementation and getting your processes under control. I can't stress it enough. I mean, I have this color hair for a reason, right? I mean, I've been in operations my entire career, and I've been in plenty that had bad processes. And if you go through these implementations, whether it's a software implementation or a hardware automation implementation, if you carry bad processes into it, you're going to have bad processes out of it.
And one more thing I'd want to add, when you're trying to build these better processes, is make sure that you're getting the input of everybody, or at least the managers of the groups of the people who are going to have to implement these processes. Because I've seen it before too, hey, this is a good idea. I say good idea in quotes, because sometimes somebody says something that makes sense in theory. And whenever you do something in theory, when rubber meets the road, you're doing it in practice, we missed some of the nuance on why we do things a certain way. And the new process may not be good. The old one's bad. The new one is bad prime. So get the input from the people who are going to be doing it so we can figure out, hey, when we're building this, let's have a cohesive way to work together that leverages the automation, which is a tool. It's not doing your job for you. It's not something that is going to just passively accept your old processes. How do we leverage it with a new good process to augment the tool that we're putting into the building?
Yep. And a couple of more things, just real world examples. The way management thinks it works and the guy on the line thinks it works are two different things. So talk to the people touching the thing, doing the thing, okay? Just trust me, I've seen this too many times. So get the people involved the change is going to affect their lives, okay? Those are the ones you want to talk to. So you may have a process map based off of management theory, but you better talk to the folks doing the job. And one more thing, just a real life example. We're working with a client now that's about to make a 7-figure decision on automation. And we are telling them, okay, tap the brakes. There's some preparation work you have to do. You've got 20,000 SKUs. You have dimensions on 10% of them. Let me tell you how unforgiving automation is going to be. It needs to know length, width, height, weight. And then you've got to take volumes on all these things. So we're working hard with them on data analysis. Okay, look at all these widgets, A, B, C, D, rank them. Well, let's talk about DIMMs, let's talk about pick frequency, let's talk about solutions. So it is all about preparation, or you'll spend the money and you'll either have really fast bad processes or you will just grind to a halt. Automation is wonderful and it's unforgiving. If you tell it bad things, that this thing, it's the size of a lipstick tube, but in the system it thinks it's the size of a baseball bat, your system will treat it like that. You can't have that. So preparation, is absolutely key, and that's what we want to advise you in this, okay?
So, and for you guys that came in a little bit late, so we've spent more time in our careers on your side of the table than on the consulting side of the table, right? And so Al was a customer of ours a few years back, and he ran an operation, and he had the perfect example of a highly automated system that bad processes were duplicated inside this highly automated system, and resulted in a relationship between us when he called us to come in and help him, right? He had inherited this system that there was very poor planning, there was very poor upfront communication, the workforce was never part of the implementation, and it ended up in needing a lot of help.
This was a 8-figure capital spend, and there were sins on both sides, okay? There really were. They brought me in, they had already invested the big number in this sexiest piece of equipment you've ever seen, and we couldn't get the job done. As we dug back to root cause, poor planning on the company side and problems on both sides, okay? So nobody's sinless in this, but that's a great example of not doing it right. And that's what we want to advise you is ask the questions, tap the brakes, double check things, plan. It's the analogy of if you got to cut down a tree, spend the first few hours sharpening the axe, don't go grab the axe. But we have a tendency to go put the fire out, go. And we will advise you, whether you work with us or work with somebody else, ask the questions, prepare, tap the brakes, or you'll end up with a thing like I had, which did not have a happy ending.
All right, integration points, right? Don't assume anything in integration, right? And so the integration points, there are many integration points, right? There's, you think of IT, right? That's kind of the natural integration point that you're thinking of, but integration points are everywhere. How does it fit in with your existing organization? So if you're putting in an automated picking system, how does it work with receiving? How does it work with put away? How does it work with shipping? You know, what are the processes that feed it and take it away, right? If you're putting in an automated receiving system, a robotic receiving system or something like that, how does that affect how goods are received in the system, how they're put away, how they're picked? You know, the integration points aren't just where computers talk to each other, it's where things happen operationally on the floor. What does my labor look like in the other areas that support that automation tool that you're putting in? And identify in that upfront piece of it, in that planning piece of it, what are all the integration points, or what are the things that are going to be affected post go live, right? Do you want to talk about the people side?
Guys, if nothing else, please write down that third bullet point, okay? In whatever you do, change has to happen with people, not to people. If you want to wreck a project, whether it's automation, whether it's anything, don't get buy-in and watch what happens. You know, feet will drag, delays will happen, but you want to get people excited about this is what this change is going to do, because naturally people don't like change. They like the way we've always done it. So you've got to get people involved on this is why we're doing it, and it's just as important to talk about what we're not going to do. Guys, there's 100 things we need to fix, okay? We're going to focus on these 5 through this project. These other 95, they will come later. People need to understand what you're not working on as much as what you're working on, so they're not in the background going, have you seen these guys? They're not listening to me. So just get in front of them and tell them, you know, make the list. You know, get your Post-it notes out, make 100 bullet points. This is everything we need to fix, but guys, this is going to wait for phase 2. This is why we're doing phase 1, and educate them. But the change has to happen with people, and you cannot miss over communicating this, and they need to know what you're doing and what you're not doing and why. Watch what happens when you get buy-in in an organization. It's like a flame on gas fumes. It's fantastic. You really get excitement burning.
Change management, it's become a cliche, right? I mean, it's a term kind of coined in the 90s, but in projects like this, it's extremely important. We talked earlier about, it needs to be everything from senior management to the janitor, right? And the change needs to be, everyone needs to be involved in that change, know why we're doing those changes. What is the impact to them? What's their impact to the job? What are we missing as a project team, right? Ask the people on the floor who are going to be using this, what are we missing as a project team? Because there's always something. I guarantee you there's always something you're missing. So if you get everybody involved from the top to the very lowest level, you're gonna draw those things out of the team. You're gonna make less mistakes, and you're gonna have a much better implementation, much smoother implementation, because they're part of it and not just on the periphery being told what's gonna happen.
Yeah, just a story. Once upon a time, I was working for this $11 billion company, global company, okay? And we ran a piece of that division, a small piece, but we were doing some big things, implementing some big changes. The board of directors flew in, okay? This is the board of directors coming to see, of an $11 billion company coming to see our little $500 million operation. And we got them in the building, gave them a quick intro. Board of directors, okay? And I cut them loose in a 900,000 square foot shop with 350 people, because I knew that when that board member found anybody they wanted, they could talk about how they fit into this. Our janitor knew that we were doing this project and it was going to happen, next summer, and their job was to make sure the break rooms were clean, the bathrooms were clean, the people weren't distracted. The maintenance people were able to tell the board of directors now, okay, you talk about taking a chance with your life, but maintenance people could talk about, let me tell you about what we're doing, preventive maintenance. Let me tell you about the changes we're going to make in our behavior because of this new system that's coming in. Anybody in the shop was able to say, let me tell you how my goals align with this project. You get that kind of buy-in, you will be successful.
Absolutely. So we're gonna close this section out of it. Again, this is two sections. First is planning for the implementation, and the second section is planning for support. Right? How do you support this afterwards? Matt is the guru on the planning for the support piece of it, so he's going to take it from here. But you've heard a few key messages, right, from Al and I on planning for implementation. Right? It's getting everybody involved. It's planning for the change. It's making sure that you fix the things, process from broken processes, bad processes before you implement, right? They're so important, and we're hammering it because people just don't do it, or they do it half-assed, right? And you do something half-assed, and you know what you get out of that. So planning for these things is well-utilized time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt for the second portion.
Thanks, Jeff. So I said at the beginning, part of my role at DCS life cycle, and what that means is, well, like you said, all the post-project support. So that's 24/7 hotlines, troubleshooting the control systems, the software systems, spare parts, training. I mean, all the things that you have to keep doing throughout the course of the life cycle of one of these systems to keep it operating the way you intended. So the system should mostly stay the same. I mean, you'll have retrofits, you'll have upgrades. The people are always moving. And it is a constant battle to keep the proficiency up. But before you get to maintaining them, you have to set it up correctly. Almost everybody remembers to include operations, maintenance, and finance for building out one of these systems. How's it going to work? How are we going to keep it running? And how are we going to pay for it? People forget a lot of the other key stakeholders. I mean, can you leverage marketing and sales? Can you talk about how this is going to affect your clients and get more bang for the buck on that? For engineering, can the system physically support it? You're going to find out real quick when you try and turn it on, you don't have clean power, for example. You needed a power conditioner all along, so you never did a power study. IT is a huge one. If you're going to support this thing, does IT know that you need a VPN access and that people need to have a security token or whatever the IT policy is? For every company, there's a different IT policy, and the project planning teams very frequently forget to ask, hey, what's it going to take, and get them involved. They say, yeah, this is what you need, sure, we can accommodate that, but didn't actually ask IT if that was true or not. And then HR. A new system, you're going to need new skill sets. Do you know what you're hiring for? I actually polled our 24/7 support team. Our controls engineers, our software engineers are the ones that talk to the users of these systems on a daily basis. Usually when the system isn't doing what they expected, I said, hey, what are some of the big skill gaps that you see? I had them kind of Pareto the thing out. The biggest thing was the maintenance team's proficiency on what it was. It was across the board on why that might be. Some of the maintenance guys, they grow up in a break-fix mentality. Like, hey, I'm here, this thing breaks, I'm gonna fix it. That thing breaks, I'm gonna fix it. They don't do proactive system walks. Like, what should this be? What does right look like? And taking that proactive approach. One thing I see, I like to call the bell curve of experience. So the brand new maintenance techs, they know they don't know. They're gonna ask questions. The guys who have been doing it forever and are really good, they know what they don't know, and they're gonna ask questions. But the guys who've been doing it for a while, sometimes overconfident, and that's the ones that get you in trouble the most. They know, hey, I've been doing this for 15 years, I've seen it all. Well, we just put in a new system that works completely differently. You really do have to listen to the training and go back to the references and all that kind of stuff.
How many people have gone live with a program, whether it be a software solution or a hardware solution, and the training took place months before the actual go live and was not refreshed, right, prior to go live. And then on go live day, you had a small number of people who actually knew what they were doing and a large number of people who were trying to remember what the hell they heard a few months ago, right? How many people have done that? And that's, right, me too. And that's what we're trying to get across here, right? And Matt gets these calls, and Matt's team gets these calls, and it's all part of the preparation. If you did your training a few months back, you do a refresher of the week before go live, right? It doesn't have to be the whole training all over again, but refresh it. Give people the opportunity to ask questions again before go live day. Sorry, Matt.
No, that's great. That is a great point. And speaking of training, I would get on the operations side. See two big trends: high turnover businesses and low turnover businesses. So high turnover businesses. Who wants to guess what the big problem is with training with high turnover? This one's an easy one. Anybody want to guess? Who wants to say it? Yeah. They're coming in fresh. They don't know. They never did pre-go live training. They never did the refresher training. They came in after the fact. They have no idea what's going on. They're going to be relying on tribal knowledge. All right, let's talk about low turnover businesses. They were there. They revert back to the way that was comfortable before the system went in. People get the training, but it's impossible to retain everything. They have to be comfortable going back and referencing the material. Training isn't just learning the process, it's learning how to use the documentation. I'll tell a funny story. Prior to getting to material handling, I was in the military for about 10 years. I was a nuclear guy for the Navy. They are not the most innovative branch of the Navy. They've been doing it the same way for probably about 50 years, never changed a thing, but very procedurally compliant. We were required to take a test. They stuck you in a room for 2 months and said, memorize these 8 4-inch binders word for word practically. And then you fly to DC and you do a bunch of interviews and you do some written tests. It was low stakes. If you pass, you keep your job. If you fail, you're fired. So even though we memorized all these things cover to cover, it was still required after the fact. Every time you did a thing, whatever this thing was on the system, you open the book, you circle the step you're on, you check it off when you're complete. People aren't always super comfortable with it. Like, hey, I know what to do to track this belt, to recalibrate the sorter. I'm just going to do it. We don't validate that we're doing it by the documentation. And a lot of times, subconsciously, we just revert to, what did I do before? Even though I used to use sorter XYZ, but now I know, do this thing that's 30 years newer and works differently. I'm going to do it the same way. It's a habit to break. And it's a cultural shift, too. So training approaches. Everybody says train the trainer. I mean, it's kind of a catchphrase, kind of like change management.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
How do you know your trainer is doing a good job? What's the culture within the training organization? And what are they training? Are they training the material, or are they training the culture to reference the source documentation? Because that's the right answer. You have all the documentation from all of your vendors. It's turned over with the project. And is this trainer, are they empowered to show what does right look like? That's not easy to do. What does right look like? We talked earlier about break fix for the maintenance techs. That's a way to do it. Are they doing the proactive system walks? That's what right looks like. Walking around, listening, looking, even if nothing is wrong, because you catch the things before they really manifest into the problems that you really care about, which is system downtime. Now,
We're getting close.
yeah. So how do you validate that these people know? One way that we've done it before is we'll create super users. These people are required to go to every training, every vendor. You send them out for additional stuff. That person is now your internal escalation resource, right there on site, easy to get a hold of, and they're the primary conduit talking to your support network. So sometimes when these support calls come in, well, is the system running? No. Is the red light on? What red light? Did you press the green button? What green button? The one next to the phone. Boop. Oh, it's on. It's kind of a silly story. It does happen. What actually happens in real life is an e-stop was pulled. We do 2 hours of troubleshooting. We validated the e-stops 3 times. E-stops was pulled the whole time. And you have two hours of downtime because the person who called in didn't escalate to a super user. One way to validate this is through certification exams. Raise your hand if you've ever been guilty of multitasking during a large training meeting. Or any meeting. Like, I'm paying attention to both. I know I'm listening. I'm also answering these Slack messages or Teams messages or text messages on the emergency that's at hand. I really didn't pick up what was going on the group meeting. You find that out during the certification exam. It's not a big deal. Like, hey, you got a 90%. All of your wrong answers were on subsystem C. Did you miss that training? I was dealing with a spare parts issue that was an emergency. All right, go reference that, go retake subsection C so that you're on it. You find out where people's proficiency is and where people's proficiency isn't very quickly if you actually do exams on it. Make it low stress, it's not a big deal, but you identify where the problems are. Talk a little bit about maintenance.
So I love this slide because
Thank you.
as an operator, right, and so I ran some automated buildings, and I don't know about you guys, but this is where I lived, right, here, mostly here, and when we did some of this, I felt really good about it, right? It's like, woohoo, we actually prevented something, but most of where we lived was, I have a belt broken, or I have an eye broken that's not reading anymore, or you name it, right? You guys fill in the blank. And so when I actually saw this slide when Matt put it together, it's like, wait a minute, I didn't even think about those things when I was running operations. I was thinking, we just need to spend more time doing this and not so damn much time doing this.
Yeah, let me give you a quick tour on this slide. So the first column with the bars, the infrastructure cost, how much are you spending to implement this solution? So you look at the top ones, you're installing a ton of sensors, you're installing AI-capable software to do data analytics. It costs a lot of money to do this. Let's talk about the middle one. How much are you paying your maintenance staff to spend hours doing the maintenance? And on the far right, the repair cost, how inconvenient is this downtime if something breaks? Are you paying for hotshot parts to come over overnight? Are you paying a $40,000 mobilization fee for 3 different vendors to come fix a thing that broke with the plastic champagne flutes getting caught in the sorter's V-belt on Christmas Eve? That one was rough.
Yes, absolutely.
One thing I want to call out that's not intuitive is that the conditional and predictive, you'll see their repair cost is higher than preventive. All right, so we all know what reactive is. It's a break fix. We all know preventive, that's your scheduled maintenance. That's where most people aspire to live. Every month, I'm doing this maintenance item on this piece of equipment. Every 3 months, I'm doing that maintenance item on that piece of equipment. You prevent a lot of downtime because you're taking good care of the system. All right, conditional, instead of doing it on a time base, you're doing it on, like, for example, a runtime. Every 1,000 hours, I do that. Every 500 hours, I do that. Sometimes when you do that, the repair cost goes up because you're not spending as much time maintaining it. However, you could spend significantly less time, this is kind of hard to wrap your mind around, doing the planned maintenance items. So, say everything is on preventive, you get 80% utilization out of the equipment. But if you're on conditional, maybe you get 94% utilization out of the equipment, occasionally extra downtime. It's a trade-off. Sometimes that's okay, sometimes it's not. How do you figure which one's the right one to go with? The answer is it's usually a hybrid. So what we see a lot of people do is we're looking at these higher level ones on your most critical equipment. You know, people will say, hey, the sorter is the heartbeat of the system. I might be doing preventive and conditional on my primary sorters. How about my gravity down lanes? I'm probably doing all reactive because I don't need to install sensors on a gravity down lane. If it breaks, I'm going to fix it. It's no big deal. Taking time to figure out where is the highest level of criticality in my system. You know, how much visibility am I going to put on its system status and how I'm prioritizing the maintenance. And you might do multiple strategies on a single piece of equipment, or you might do just reactive on other pieces of equipment. Where is your risk? Because you can't put a sensor on every single thing. It's cost prohibitive. When you do maintenance, whether it's fixing something that broke or whether it's preventive, you need spares. What spares do you need? I mean, there's a spectrum of answers on that. I've had some customers that ask for a spare of everything and multiples for every possible failure. It's going to cost a ton of money. It's going to take up a ton of space. I've had some customers who didn't really want anything. They were going to buy it all off the shelf. Most people live somewhere in between the two. This next part's boring. You have to go line by line and figure out, again, just like the maintenance ones, where is my downtime going to hurt the most? For that piece of equipment, say the sorter is going to be high on the list, your gravity down lanes might be low on the list, what components in there are going to hurt the most? Do I need a lot of extra sliding shoes? Maybe. Do I need a spare drive on my main sorter? Yeah, you probably do, because if you don't get that one might be a 12-week lead time to get a new one. You're down hard for that whole time. Looking through what parts do I need to keep the operation running, and what are their lead times? Is this something I can go grab from Grainger on a moment's notice? Maybe I don't keep it in my maintenance cage. Is it a custom drive for my sorter that has 12-week lead time? You better believe I have one. So it's line by line. It's tedious, but it is something that's required. And another thing that people forget to do, down here at the bottom, how do you track that stuff? Can't tell you how many times people have called in, hey, this broke. Yep, we're going to help you troubleshoot. This component is identified as the root cause. Okay, let me get my spares. Oh, I don't have one. Actually, I showed that you have 3. It's in your maintenance cage. Yep, can't find it. Don't know where it is. Do you have a tracking system? Do people know how to use it, and are people trained on how to use it? Because that stuff gets lost all the time. Please put it together, spares tracking system. So we've done 2 sections. First section, we talked about a lot of stuff. Gap analysis, process development, integration points. Second section, we talked about the stakeholders, training programs, maintenance and spares. What questions do you guys have? What have you seen? What's nagging at you? What keeps you up at night when you're worried about your system?